This is the first reggae tune that was done in Jamaica.
Well, Bangarang is known to be the first reggae music.
Yes.
And I sung the first reggae song.
You ever noticed how everyone wants to claim they invented something first? From the person who really invented the first sandwich to the creator of TikTok dances. Well, reggae's got its own version of that fight. The story of the very first reggae song is full of legends, bragging rights, and a whole lot of controversy. Some say it was this track, while others swear it was that one. Honestly, the arguments have been ongoing longer than some of us have been alive. Today we're breaking down the battle over the first reggae song, and how one tune managed to spark a movement that changed music forever. Some key figures of reggae. Sometimes a sound sneaks up on you, and suddenly the whole world is listening. That's exactly what happened in the late 1960s with reggae, a genre that started in Jamaica and grew into a global phenomenon. Its story is full of creative pioneers, cultural shifts, and a rhythm that refuses to stay still. It all begins with Toots and the Maytals. In 1968, their single, Do the Reggae, did more than top local charts. It named a movement. The song connected a catchy beat to a slang term floating through Kingston streets, and in doing so, it gave reggae a label that would stick forever. This wasn't just about marketing, it was about identity. The Maytals showed that Jamaican music could have a distinctive, recognizable sound, and that the music itself could carry the culture beyond the island. At the same time, other key figures were shaping reggae's DNA. The Wailers, consisting of Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer, took the emerging rhythms of reggae and turned them into something bigger. They infused the music with socially conscious lyrics, personal storytelling, and a spiritual depth that made the sound resonate far beyond Kingston. Through their tours and recordings, they carried reggae to international audiences, laying the foundation for the genre's global popularity. Lee Scratch Perry deserves a special mention in this story. Known for his inventive studio techniques, Perry experimented with echo, reverb, and layering in ways that pushed reggae's sound forward. His work helped define the genre's distinctive rhythm and texture, influencing generations of musicians and producers who followed. Another key figure in bringing reggae to the world was Jimmy Cliff. Cliff's songs connected the reggae beat to universal themes, helping the music cross cultural boundaries. His international success showed that reggae wasn't just a Jamaican phenomenon. It could speak to people everywhere, and it could thrive on stages from London to New York. Of course, reggae didn't emerge out of nowhere. Its roots trace back to Jamaican folk songs and African musical traditions. The genre evolved from ska, which itself was influenced by mento and calypso, combining lively horn lines with upbeat rhythms. Then came rocksteady, a slightly slower, smoother style that emphasized soulful vocals and a stronger rhythm section. From this foundation, reggae added its signature offbeat guitar and syncopated bass, creating the groove that listeners instantly recognize. Socially conscious lyrics became another hallmark of reggae. Songs often reflected life in Jamaica, tackling themes like poverty, resistance, love, and spirituality. This combination of compelling rhythm and meaningful messages gave reggae both an emotional and cultural weight, allowing it to resonate with audiences far beyond the island. By the end of the 1960s, reggae was no longer just a local sound. It had a name, a distinct rhythm, and a growing community of artists who were experimenting with its possibilities. From Toots and the Maytals giving it an identity, to the Wailers spreading it worldwide, to producers like Lee Perry shaping its sonic character, and performers like Jimmy Cliff popularizing it internationally, reggae became a movement, not just a genre. Today, reggae's influence can be heard in countless styles, from pop to hip-hop to rock, but its heartbeat remains unmistakable. Its story is one of innovation, collaboration, and culture in motion, a testament to how music can capture a moment, a place, and a people, and carry it across the globe. Reggae didn't just start in a studio or on a stage. It started in the streets of Kingston, in the rhythms of everyday life, and in the imagination of artists who weren't afraid to try something new. And thanks to them, we still feel that groove today. The birth of reggae. Imagine if your favorite playlist suddenly slowed down, the horns took a step back, and the bass line started doing all the heavy lifting. That's pretty much how reggae walked onto the stage. But like every great musical invention, the story of the first reggae song comes wrapped in arguments, legends, and a whole lot of "no, my record came first." Reggae didn't just appear out of thin air. Its DNA comes straight out of Jamaica in the 1960s, carrying the heartbeat of ska, the cool sway of rocksteady, and even older flavors like mento and calypso. Ska, which kicked off in the late 50s, had jazz-inspired horns, piano offbeats, and a walking bass line that kept young Jamaicans moving after independence in 1962. Then the tempo slowed, and rocksteady showed up, more romantic, less flashy, and perfect for anyone who wasn't built to sprint through a dance hall set. By the mid to late 60s, musicians started twisting rocksteady rhythms into something new. Songs like Larry Marshall's Nanny Goat and the Beltones' No More Heartaches are often pointed to as the first official reggae tracks. The sound was different. It wasn't trying to mimic slick American R&B anymore. Instead, it leaned into raw rhythm, funky organ shuffles, and a steady beat that hit you right in the chest. Lee Scratch Perry pushed it even further with People Funny Boy in 1968, a track that pretty much yelled, "This is reggae now, deal with it." And deal with it they did. Reggae had an advantage. It could stretch in all directions. From Perry's early jerky experiments to the polished international vibe of bands like Third World, reggae proved it could wear a lot of outfits and still sound unmistakably itself. Behind the sound, the Rastafari movement brought another layer of depth. Naya Binghi drumming, rooted in spiritual rituals, slipped into the studio recordings. Count Ossie and other Rasta drummers helped give reggae that grounded communal pulse. So, while reggae made people dance, it also carried a message: faith, identity, and resistance all wrapped into rhythm. Technology helped spread it too. Jamaican producers and sound system operators were pressing records as fast as they could. First, it was 78s, then 7-inch singles, then 45s that traveled not just across the island but overseas, especially to the UK, where Jamaican immigrants and local fans couldn't get enough of the new sound. Labels like Island Records and Trojan Records made sure reggae didn't stay a local treasure. It became a global phenomenon. Of course, no reggae story is complete without the Wailers. Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer were the rare band that lived through ska, rocked rocksteady, and rode the wave into reggae. They weren't alone either. Prince Buster, Desmond Decker, Ken Booth, and even Millie Small, whose My Boy Lollipop had already broken barriers, were part of the movement that carried Jamaican music into the spotlight. So, which track is really the first reggae song? Let's take a look at the contenders. Bangarang. You know how every family reunion has at least one uncle who insists he started every funny tradition? Turns out reggae has that same uncle energy. For decades, artists and producers have argued about who recorded the first true reggae track. And if you ask Stranger Cole, better known as Strange Cole, he'll tell you flat out that his 1968 hit Bangarang deserves the crown, not Nanny Goat by Larry Marshall. Stranger isn't shy about his claim. At the 23 Reggae Jam Festival, he reminded fans that it's not about who threw the word reggae into a song first. It's about who created the actual rhythm. It's not about you sing the first reggae song. It's about the first reggae redeem, he explained. For him, that distinction matters. Words are one thing, but the heartbeat of reggae, the beat itself, that's what he insists Bangarang delivered before anyone else. So, what's the story behind it? Back in 1968, Stranger Cole teamed up with Scatolites legend Lester Sterling. Sterling composed the rhythm for Mumanawant Bangarang, which Cole had adapted from Kenny Graham and the Afro-Cubists' 1950s piece Bongo Chant. Stranger came in, laid down the vocals, and history, or controversy, depending who you ask, was made. Recorded at Duke Reed's studio with Bunny Striker Lee behind the board and Lloyd Charmers on keys, the track hit #1 and quickly became an anthem. But here's where the debate heats up. Many music historians point to Nanny Goat, recorded that same year at Studio One, as the first track that truly locked in the reggae feel. Producer Clement Dodd had just returned from England with new equipment like delay effects, which helped shape the organ shuffle and guitar style that defined the record. According to a 2012 Gleaner article, most musicologists lean toward Nanny Goat as the song that gave reggae its official identity. And if that wasn't enough, other producers like Clancy Eccles stepped in to claim credit too. Eccles argued that he created the beat, while others suggested the birth of reggae was less about one genius moment and more about a collective shift. Some theories even say the new producers, who didn't have access to the top session players locked down by big names like Dodd and Duke Reed, ended up working with less experienced musicians. Those musicians, trying something new, accidentally built a rhythm that would change global music forever. Talk about a happy accident. Looking back, it's easy to see how all these elements collided. Ska and rocksteady had already laid the groundwork with their upbeat horns and slower romantic vibes. By 1968, Jamaican musicians were itching for something different, something more raw, more grounded in rhythm, and less polished like the American R&B that inspired earlier sounds. Songs like Bangarang and Nanny Goat captured that shift. Even the Gleaners' 2018 feature on the birth of reggae admitted that Bangarang, with Sterling saxophone and Cole's vocals, showed early signs of the reggae rhythm that would take the world by storm. The song didn't just make people dance, it set the stage for an entire genre. Nanny Goat. Released in 1968, this song didn't just top charts in Jamaica, it signaled a whole new era in music, marking the shift from rocksteady to reggae. Larry Marshall, who had been working as an assistant engineer at Studio One, joined forces with Alvin Leslie to form the duo Larry and Alvin. Their collaboration with legendary producer Clement Coxsone Dodd led to Nanny Goat, a record that is now widely considered one of the very first reggae songs. While Stranger Cole has his argument for Bangarang, and the Beltones put out No More Heartaches around the same time, Nanny Goat has often been credited as the turning point where Jamaican music officially changed direction. So, what made this track so special? It comes down to the beat. Rocksteady had already slowed down Ska's frantic pace, but Nanny Goat pushed things further. Its rhythm section introduced a shuffle and bounce that was different from the smoother, soul-inspired grooves of rocksteady. The new sound leaned on the guitar and organ, adding an edge that felt fresh and distinctly Jamaican. You could feel the shift immediately, the kind of groove that made you move differently, a little looser, a little deeper. The song's backing track became just as legendary as the song itself. In Jamaica, that instrumental backbone is called a redeem, and the Nanny Goat redeem became one of the most important building blocks in reggae history. Redeems often take on a life of their own, with multiple artists recording different songs over the same track. The Nanny Goat rhythm was no exception. It turned into a classic, reused, reimagined, and celebrated by countless performers over the years. Coxsone Dodd deserves his flowers here too. As the producer and head of Studio One, he was responsible for shaping much of early reggae's sound. Studio One itself was like the Motown of Jamaica. If you were an up-and-coming singer or musician in the 1960s, that's where you wanted to be. The studio wasn't just a workplace, it was a training ground and an incubator for creativity. Dodd's production on Nanny Goat captured the spirit of experimentation that defined the era. To put it in perspective, think of Nanny Goat as reggae's first strong handshake with the world. It wasn't flashy or overly polished, but it was confident, catchy, and had that unmistakable new rhythm that would soon spread far beyond Kingston. Alongside No More Heartaches, it stands as one of the earliest fully formed reggae recordings. Not just a transition piece, but a foundation for everything that came after. Another important aspect of Nanny Goat's legacy is how it highlights the Jamaican approach to music making. Unlike other places where songs lived and died on the charts, in Jamaica, redeems kept breathing. A hot rhythm could be recycled over and over, with fresh lyrics and vocals giving it new life each time. Nanny Goat wasn't just a hit single, it was a template, a musical skeleton that would be dressed in countless new skins across the years. Looking back, you can see why Nanny Goat has such a respected place in reggae history. It arrived right at the moment when Jamaican musicians were searching for something new, something that felt like theirs. Rocksteady was running its course, ska was already behind them, and the time was right for a beat that could carry the weight of a movement. Larry and Alvin delivered that beat, and reggae was born. People Funny Boy. Sometimes, history doesn't announce itself with a grand drum roll. It sneaks in with a beat so infectious that the whole world can't help but sway along. That's exactly what happened in 1968, when a producer with a rebellious streak decided to push music in a bold new direction. Out of this moment came what many argue is the very first reggae track, Lee Scratch Perry's People Funny Boy. But like all great stories, this one comes with controversy, rivals, and a musical showdown that forever changed Jamaican music. By the late 1960s, Jamaica's soundscape was already in motion. Ska had slowed into rocksteady, a smoother, more soulful rhythm that dominated dance halls. But Lee Perry wasn't interested in keeping things comfortable. Known for his experimental approach and fiery personality, Perry was in a heated fallout with fellow producer Joe Gibbs. Out of that feud, Perry released People Funny Boy, a song that didn't just take aim at Gibbs, but also introduced a rhythmic shift that would evolve into reggae. The track's driving bass line, offbeat emphasis, and socially charged energy set it apart from anything listeners had heard before. It wasn't just music, it was a statement, one that spoke directly to the struggles and frustrations of ordinary Jamaicans. With this release, Perry not only aired his grievances, but also gave birth to a style that would go on to define generations. But what's a revolution without resistance? Gibbs wasn't about to take Perry's jab lying down. He responded with People Grudgeful, a direct musical retort. On the surface, it was a producer's feud playing out in real time. But looking back, this back and forth carried a much greater weight. It highlighted the fertile creativity of Jamaica's music scene at the time, where innovation was born out of both rivalry and camaraderie. Together, People Funny Boy and People Grudgeful embody the spark of reggae's genesis. While Perry's track is often crowned as the first, Gibbs's answer ensured that reggae wasn't just the product of one man's experiment. It was a sound emerging collectively, shaped by clashes, collaborations, and cultural context. What made this moment so monumental was the clear break from rocksteady. Rocksteady's smoother grooves had ruled the airwaves, but Perry's new approach injected something rawer and more urgent. The tempo slowed slightly, the rhythm leaned into the offbeat, and the bass took on a heavier, more hypnotic role. By 1968, reggae had taken its first steps, and Jamaica's sound was shifting dramatically. Producers, singers, and musicians across the island began to experiment, adopting and expanding on the style Perry had introduced. This period laid the groundwork for the reggae explosion of the 1970s, when artists like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Jimmy Cliff would take the genre to the global stage. Looking back, the importance of People Funny Boy can't be overstated. Perry used music to challenge norms, to express frustration, and to stand his ground. That rebellious spirit became central to reggae, a genre that would go on to amplify messages of resistance, resilience, and unity worldwide. At the same time, the controversy over which song truly deserves the title of the first reggae record keeps the story alive. Some give Perry sole credit, while others argue Gibbs's People Grudgeful deserves just as much recognition. The truth may be that reggae's birth wasn't a single moment, but a dialogue, a push and pull between artists daring to step outside tradition. Whether you crown Perry's People Funny Boy as the very first, or you see it as one half of a musical duel with Gibbs's People Grudgeful, one thing is undeniable: 1968 was the year reggae was born. That one feud, set to music, sparked a sound that would ripple out from Jamaica to every corner of the globe. And it all started with a beat, a bass line, and a daring refusal to play by the old rules. No more heartaches. By the late 1960s, Jamaica's music scene was already a bubbling cauldron of innovation. Ska had lit the fuse earlier in the decade, with its brisk horn-driven rhythms, while rocksteady slowed things down, favoring soulful vocals and bass-heavy grooves. Out of that stew, something rawer and more hypnotic began to take shape. Reggae emerged as a sound that let the rhythm section drive the bus. Instead of horns at the wheel, the bass and drums took center stage, pulsing with a syncopated heartbeat that seemed to echo the island's own energy. That's where No More Heartaches comes in. Released in early 1968, this track from the Beltones didn't just tweak the formula, it flipped the script. Produced by Harry J. of Harry J's studio fame, the song stood apart for its unmistakable beat, one that leaned into the groove in a way ska and rocksteady never fully embraced. The Beltones themselves were a vocal trio who poured both pain and defiance into the performance. The lyrics carried the sting of betrayal, but wrapped it in rhythm, as if to say, "The world might break your heart, but the beat will keep you moving." Creating No More Heartaches wasn't just about crafting a catchy tune. It was about capturing a cultural shift. Harry J. and the musicians behind the track experimented with new ways of letting the bass line breathe, locking it in with drum patterns that gave space for vocals to ride over the top. That hypnotic quality is what gave reggae its backbone, and what set this song apart as a cornerstone in the genre's history. At almost the same moment, Larry Marshall's Nanny Goat was stepping onto the scene. Recorded at Studio One under the legendary Coxsone Dodd, Nanny Goat is often mentioned in the same breath as No More Heartaches. Both songs showcase the shift from rocksteady to reggae, but each brought its own flavor. Marshall's track leaned into playful lyrics and catchy hooks, while the Beltones anthem carried a more urgent emotional weight. Together, they created a 1-2 punch that announced reggae's arrival loud and clear. The influence of these songs traveled fast. By the end of 1968, the sound was already pushing past Jamaica's borders. American audiences caught the vibe through Johnny Nash's Hold Me Tight, which hit the charts with reggae rhythms baked into its DNA. Even across the Atlantic, the Beatles dabbled with the style in Obla Di, Obla Da, though purists might roll their eyes at that example. Still, the fact that the biggest band in the world flirted with reggae that same year speaks volumes about how quickly the sound was spreading. What makes No More Heartaches legendary isn't just its age, it's the way it crystallized a new direction for Jamaican music. Before it, ska and rocksteady ruled. After it, reggae had a voice, a pulse, and an identity of its own. The song captured the tension and resilience of a generation and transformed it into rhythm, bass, and truth. Do the Reggae. Along comes a song that doesn't just ride the wave of that new beat, it literally gives it a name. That track was Do the Reggae by the Maytals, and it marked the moment reggae got its title. Released in 1968 on Leslie Kong's Beverly's label in Jamaica and Pyramid Records in the UK, Do the Reggae wasn't just a hit single, it was the first widely popular track to attach the word reggae to this emerging sound, stamping the music with an identity that would circle the globe. Up until then, the word was floating around Jamaica as the name of a short-lived dance craze. But when Toots Hibbert and the Maytals tied it to their song, that word stuck to the music itself. And reggae was officially born, at least in name. But where did the word come from in the first place? That's where things get interesting. Toots Hibbert himself explained in a BBC interview that reggae came from everyday slang. In Jamaica, it was used to describe someone who looked a little rough around the edges. Untidy, scruffy, maybe even shabby in their dress. According to Hibbert, the word was already in the air, but during a jam session with friends, he casually sang, "Let's do the reggae." It rolled off the tongue, worked with the beat, and the rest, as they say, is history. The Jamaican Dictionary of English from 1967 even lists reggae as a term meaning ragged clothes or a quarrel, showing that the word had roots in everyday patois long before it was tied to music. Hibbert's creative spark simply pulled it into a new context. What had been slang for something messy or scrappy suddenly became the label for a style of music that would conquer the world. Of course, not everyone agrees on that story. Reggae historian Steve Barrow has pointed to producer Clancy Eccles as the one who may have transformed the word streggae, a local slang term for a loose or ragged woman, into reggae. In his telling, the word mutated through casual street talk until musicians adopted it. Hibbert, however, was adamant that it was his off-the-cuff phrasing that cemented the connection between word and rhythm. Even Bob Marley had his own theory. He suggested that reggae was linked to a Spanish phrase meaning the king's music. Others have traced it back to the Latin root regi, which also ties to the word king. Some scholars and even liner notes from gospel compilations have leaned into that interpretation, adding yet another layer to the mystery of where the word truly came from. Regardless of which explanation you believe, the fact remains. Once the Maytals released Do the Reggae, the name traveled fast. Before that, Jamaican popular music had been tagged with all kinds of labels. Blue beat, ska, rocksteady. But this new beat was different. It had a more driving bass line, guitar chops on the offbeat, and a looser, earthier feel that set it apart. And now, thanks to one song, it had a permanent title. So, which one is it? When it comes to music history, the moment a genre is born is never simple. Reggae is no exception. Ask any fan or historian, and you'll hear a dozen different contenders for the very first reggae track. From Nanny Goat to Bangarang, People Funny Boy to Do the Reggae, each song has a claim, each story a different spin. But when you stack the evidence, one track seems to stand just slightly ahead of the rest. Let's start in early 1968, a pivotal year in Jamaican music. Larry Marshall and Alvin Leslie, known as Larry and Alvin, released Nanny Goat under Clement Coxsone Dodd's Studio One label. This track is often credited as one of the first full-fledged reggae recordings. Its riddim, a term for the instrumental backing, introduced the driving offbeat rhythm and slower tempo that became reggae's signature. Alongside it, No More Heartaches by the Beltones also helped define the sound, taking the smoothness of rocksteady and injecting a pulse that demanded attention from bass and drums rather than horns. Both songs clearly marked a shift, moving Jamaican music from its rocksteady comfort zone into something new. Meanwhile, another contender was stirring up the scene. Stranger Cole, collaborating with Lester Sterling of the Scatolites, recorded Bangarang. Cole insists this was the first reggae song ever. The track was adapted from a 1950s hit called Bongo Chant, with Sterling's saxophone and Lloyd Chalmers' keyboard adding to its unique flavor. Cole emphasizes that reggae isn't about a word, it's about the rhythm, the riddim. From that perspective, Bangarang demonstrates a foundational reggae beat, even if it didn't carry the name. Not to be left out, Lee Scratch Perry made waves with People Funny Boy, a bold, rebellious single released in 1968 during a feud with producer Joe Gibbs. Its bass-driven rhythm and experimental approach helped push the music away from rocksteady. Gibbs answered with People Grudgeful, and together the two tracks captured the early innovation and tension that fueled reggae's emergence. Perry's contribution was musical, but also very ideological. He challenged the status quo and created a sound that was instantly identifiable as something new. And then there's Do the Reggae by Toots Hibbert and the Maytals. Released the same year, this track holds a special place. It was the first song to actually use the word reggae. Hibbert borrowed the term from local slang describing someone scruffy or ragged, and by singing it over the music, he inadvertently gave the genre its name. Unlike the other tracks, Do the Reggae isn't necessarily the first to create the beat, but it's the first to label it as such, and names have power. So, how do we decide which deserves the crown? If you're measuring by beat, riddim, and structure, Nanny Goat and No More Heartaches take strong leads. They clearly establish the reggae rhythm, transitioning from rocksteady in a way that listeners could instantly recognize. Bangarang also has a legitimate claim for its early riddim and unique sound, while Perry's People Funny Boy shows how experimentation helped cement reggae's identity. Do the Reggae's contribution is more symbolic, giving the genre its name, even if the beat had already existed elsewhere. Most historians and musicologists lean toward Nanny Goat as the most likely candidate for the first true reggae song. Its combination of riddim, production quality, and timing puts it at the center of the genre's birth. It wasn't just a single song, it was a template that other artists would build upon, shaping the sound that would dominate Jamaica and eventually influence the world. Of course, the debate will probably never be fully settled. Each track played a role in reggae's emergence, whether through rhythm, experimentation, or naming. But if you're looking for the song that truly kick-started the reggae era in both feel and structure, Nanny Goat remains the strongest contender, though the contributions of Stranger Cole, Lee Perry, and Toots Hibbert can never be overlooked. And there you have it, the battle for the first reggae song. From Nanny Goat to Do the Reggae, each track helped shape the sound we know today. Which one do you think deserves the crown? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more music history stories.